situation. Our elevator is broken down. I'm in here with them.
Where did all the people go?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 thriller Stalker, a film that is directed by Steve Johnson and it stars Stuart Brennan, Sophie Skelton and WWE legend Bret Hart. Now this film focuses on essentially two characters played by Stuart Brennan and Sophie Skelton. Now Sophie is an actress on a movie, basically. Now she is brought in to replace another actress that has supposedly gone AWOL, gone missing. So she's kind of brought in as the replacement for this actress. And this one particular night, she goes back to the hotel where she's staying, and she gets caught in an elevator with Stuart Brennan's character, who is also working on the film. He's kind of doing like B-roll footage and things like that. But he knows her because he's filmed her quite a lot and things like that. But they both get stuck in this lift. It breaks down and it's just them two for much of this film. However, it becomes increasingly obvious that things just aren't right. And potentially there is a stalker amongst them that leads to devastating circumstances. Right, what are my thoughts on Stalker? Well, everything about this film basically screams generic for the most part. Now, while this is a low-budget indie film, it's one of those low-budget indie films that tries to do as much as it can with its small budget. Now, if you don't like the thought of essentially two actors for the majority of this film in a lift talking, kind of back and forth with each other, if you think that sounds dull, then you're probably not going to enjoy this film, because that is essentially this film. You get a 5-minute setup of her going into the lift, and then you get like a couple of flashbacks here and there, but for the most part it is 95% of it these two characters in a lift trying to sort out the situation that they're in and become increasingly aware that things just aren't right. Now that might sound dull to some people, and while I'm not saying this film is extraordinary and exciting or anything like that, I thought the performances by everybody here were absolutely fine, especially from Sophie Skelton. And to be honest, Stuart Brennan was excellent as well. You get this back and forth between these characters, this dialogue, uneasy dialogue, as they're kind of getting to know each other and trying to figure out what they can do in the situation that they're in regards to calling for help to get this lift moving again, so on and so forth. And it's one of those films where you kind of sat watching it and you're thinking, okay, I know something's going to happen. Just what is it and when? It's almost like a ticking time bomb. It's going to happen eventually. You're just not sure when it's going to happen. Now, I think the real strength of this film is the way it finishes, because it finishes in a way I didn't expect. It kind of subverts your expectations. It's one of those films that presents one thing and produces another by the end. It's not the conclusion you expect. Now, it becomes very clear when you're watching this who you think the stalker is and the scenario that these characters are in. One person, this thing is going to happen to this one person, and this other person is going to be doing it, just by the way they're acting and behaving and things like that. And then the film completely kind of spins it on its head slightly and gives you something that you're just not expecting. It ticks some of those boxes that you thought were happening, but others you kind of like, no, I weren't expecting that. So I always appreciate that in movies. If a movie, regardless of its budget, can kind of flip it on its head a little bit and give me something a little bit different by the end, then that always kind of will sell it to me to some degree. Now, wrestling fans out there, yes, I did say that Bret Hart was in this film. Now, he is in it only a small amount. I don't actually think I've ever seen Bret Hart act in a film before. I could be wrong, but I don't think I have. And he essentially plays the director of the film that this actress and this camera guy who's in this elevator with her is part of. And you see him very briefly through flashbacks having like a confrontation with the actress about a nude scene or something like that. So if you're a big Bret Hart fan, it might be nice for you to see him in a film, but just be aware, he's barely in the film. It is just these two characters in a lift having negotiations, a bit of back and forth, and then it kind of twists and turns into like a bit of a cat and mouse situation. And that's your film, basically. You're not really going to get anything more than that. It doesn't pretend to be something it isn't, other than kind of flipping it and subverting your expectations by the end. But I do think the performances, well, it certainly kept me engaged and it kept me interested. I think there are certainly a few people who watch this will think it's dull, maybe, as dishwater. Maybe not enough going on in the film for them. But for me, sometimes I like a good character piece. I like a film where the characters are written quite well and they're actually quite complex in how they are written and presented. And sometimes characters are just so one-dimensional. You know exactly who they are from like first meeting them on a low-budget film. Sometimes that's not the case here. These ones are kind of developed and they're a little bit more complex than they first appear. So that certainly kept me interested as an audience member. So while I don't think Stalker is, anything particularly special, I think it's fairly average overall. It could have been one of those films that was really, really dull to watch, but I enjoyed the characters, which is why I've given it a 5 out of 10. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back with more content on the channel very, very soon.